The thing that leads to World War I is entirely the British Empire. And the thing that causes World War II is the outcome of World War I. So in other words, in order to understand World War II, you have to understand the British story in addition to the German story. So the place I want to start is the end of the 7 Years' War, which lasted 9 years. The British win it. And at that moment, that was critical for the British Empire. The British had this dream of empire. They already had established it because they had the 13 colonies. At the time, there were 17 colonies. And what they wanted to do was keep expanding and eventually make a larger, more global empire than that. If they had lost the 7 Years' War, that was probably it for them. They would have probably never been anything more than a second-rate empire. By contrast, the French could afford to lose the 7 Years' War, and they'd be more or less okay. They could still build an empire. They might be number 2, right? Great Britain would be number 1, but they were still in the game. When that happens, from that point on, for the next 5 centuries basically, France and England fight each other all the time. And England is regularly trying to conquer whole swaths of France, and eventually it actually does. In the aftermath of the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, basically Henry V does take over France briefly. But even before that, under the reign of Henry II, whole swaths of France had been absorbed by the English. So in other words, England's mind was always towards conquering France. But because the French had done it first with William the Conqueror, the official language of England was French until Henry VII at the end of the 15th century flips it. So in other words, the story is just a bunch of Henrys and a William. In the end, some reason, the English go, you know what, we're done with France. Well, they'll still keep fighting France, but not in France. The scale of England's thinking shifts, and instead of it being this knockdown, drag-out fight in Europe between the English and the French, the English basically surrender their claims to France. They don't do it officially until Queen Victoria, but they do it in practical combat purposes well before her, and they turn their eye to the rest of the world, which is what gets them into the colonies. So when they beat the French in 1763 by the skin of their teeth, they almost lost. By beating the French, what the English did was they set themselves up to become the world's dominant empire.